Howard Decker reported the Massey Ferguson 5711 stolen on March 22, 2019. He filed the report at the Champaign County Sheriff's Department in Urbana, Illinois. The deputy who took the report asked the standard questions. When did you last see the tractor? March 19th, a Tuesday evening, parked in the machine shed. When did you discover it was missing? March 22nd, Friday morning, went to use it and it was gone. Any signs of forced entry? No. Anyone have access to the property? My wife. Hired help during planting. Do you have the serial number? Yes. The deputy wrote it all down. Serial number MFD711-6-31847. A 2016 Massey Ferguson 5711. 110 horsepower, valued at approximately $62,000. Howard had bought it new in May 2016. It had 4,300 hours on it. It was his primary tractor. Howard told the deputy he had no idea who had taken it or how. The shed had not been broken into. The keys had been in the tractor. Howard said he knew he should have kept the keys in the house. The deputy said a lot of people made that mistake. He said they would circulate the serial number and keep an eye out. Howard thanked him and went home. 3 weeks later, Howard's insurance company paid out $61,000 on the theft claim. Howard bought a replacement tractor, a 2017 Case IH, and life moved forward. The sheriff's department never found the Massey Ferguson. The case went cold. 5 years passed. Howard Decker was 58 years old in 2024. He had been farming 800 acres of corn and soybeans in Champaign County his entire adult life. He had taken over the operation from his parents in 1989 and built it steadily over 3 decades. He was well known in the county, respected. He served on the co-op board. He attended church. He coached Little League for 12 years before his knees gave out. His marriage had ended in 2019. He and Karen had separated in February of that year, 1 month before the tractor theft, and their divorce had been finalized in November 2019. It had not been a friendly divorce. Karen had wanted half of everything. Howard's lawyer had argued the farm was a premarital asset. The judge had split it differently than either of them wanted. Karen had gotten the house in town, a cash settlement, and a portion of the investment accounts. Howard had kept the farm. He had kept the equipment, including at the time of the settlement, the insurance payout from the stolen Massey Ferguson. That $61,000 had been counted as a marital asset and split. Howard had received $30,500. Karen had received the other half. It had seemed at the time like the end of a painful chapter. It was not the end. In September 2024, a Champaign County deputy named Flores was conducting a routine property inspection at a farm 12 miles south of Howard's operation. The farm belonged to a man named Dale Whitmore. Dale was 49 years old, single, and farmed about 400 acres of mixed crops. He was a quiet man, no criminal record, paid his taxes. The deputy was at the property following up on a neighbor complaint about property line encroachment, nothing to do with equipment. While Flores was walking the property with Dale, they passed the machine shed. The shed door was open. Inside were 3 tractors. Flores glanced at them the way law enforcement glances at everything. Habit. Training. He noticed the red Massey Ferguson. He noted the model. He asked Dale if he could take a look. Dale said sure, no problem. Flores walked over to the tractor. He looked at the serial number plate. He wrote it in his notebook. Then he ran it through his phone. The response came back immediately. The serial number belonged to a tractor reported stolen in Champaign County on March 22, 2019. Registered to Howard Decker. Flores looked at Dale. He asked where Dale had gotten the tractor. Dale said he had bought it. Flores asked from whom. Dale said from the owner. Flores asked what that meant. Dale said a man had come to his farm in April 2019 with the tractor on a trailer. He had said he was selling it and asked if Dale was interested. Dale said he had paid $22,000 cash. Flores asked if Dale had a bill of sale. Dale said yes. He had it in the house. They went inside. Dale pulled out a folder from a kitchen drawer and produced a document. A bill of sale dated April 8, 2019. The seller was listed as Howard Decker. The signature on the document was Howard Decker's, or appeared to be. Flores drove back to the department and pulled the 2019 theft report. He read it. Then he called Howard. He said they had found the Massey Ferguson. He said it was on a farm 12 miles south, and it had been there since April 2019. He said the man who had it claimed to have bought it from Howard with a signed bill of sale 17 days after Howard had reported it stolen. Howard was silent for a moment. Then he said he had never sold that tractor to anyone. He had never met Dale Whitmore. He had never signed a bill of sale. Flores said the document appeared to bear his signature. Howard said it was forged. Flores asked Howard to come in and make a formal statement. Howard said he would be there in an hour. Howard sat across from Flores in an interview room and looked at a copy of the bill of sale. He studied the signature. It was a good forgery. Someone had practiced. The letters were close to his natural signature, but not exact. Howard pointed out 3 specific differences in the letter formation. Flores photographed Howard's driver's license signature and sent both documents to the state crime lab for analysis. Howard asked Flores who he thought had done it. Flores said he didn't know yet. He asked Howard if there was anyone who had access to examples of his signature in early 2019. Howard thought about it. He said his wife, his ex-wife, Karen. They had been separated in February 2019 but hadn't finalized the divorce. Karen had been in and out of the house during that period, collecting her belongings, dealing with lawyers. She would have had access to documents with his signature, bank papers, insurance documents, the farm accounts. Flores asked if Howard had any reason to think Karen would have taken the tractor. Howard looked at Flores for a long moment. Then he said he didn't know. He said their separation had been bad. There was a lot of anger, a lot of financial tension. He said Karen had felt she deserved more from the farm than the court gave her. Whether she would have taken the tractor, he didn't know. But she was the most obvious person who had access to his signature and a motive. Flores opened an investigation. He subpoenaed Dale Whitmore's bank records. He looked for the $22,000 cash withdrawal that Dale said he had paid for the tractor. He found it. Dale had withdrawn $22,000 in cash from his account on April 7, 2019. One day before the date on the bill of sale, Dale had been telling the truth about the purchase. He had bought the tractor from someone. The question was from whom? Flores asked Dale to describe the person who had sold him the tractor. Dale said it was a woman, maybe 50 years old. Brown hair, medium height. She had driven a white pickup truck with a flatbed trailer. She had been professional. She had the tractor. She had the bill of sale. She had a key fob that unlocked the cab. Dale said she had seemed completely legitimate. He had no reason to doubt her. Flores asked if Dale had gotten a name. Dale said the woman had said her name was Karen Decker, and she was selling the tractor on behalf of the farm. Flores put his pen down. He looked at Dale. Karen Decker, Howard's wife, selling Howard's tractor, which Howard had reported stolen 3 days earlier, using a forged bill of sale with Howard's signature. Flores drove to Karen's address. She was living in the house she had received in the divorce settlement, a 2-story in Urbana. He rang the bell. Karen answered. She was 54 years old, well-dressed, calm. Flores identified himself. He said he wanted to ask her some questions about a Massey Ferguson tractor that had been reported stolen in 2019. Karen said she didn't know anything about a stolen tractor. Flores said the tractor had been sold by a woman who gave the name Karen Decker and used a bill of sale bearing Howard Decker's signature. Karen said she had been Karen Decker in 2019. Lots of people had that name. Flores said the buyer, a Mr. Dale Whitmore, had given a description that matched Karen's physical appearance. Karen said she wanted to speak to a lawyer before answering any more questions. Flores said that was her right. He thanked her and left. He applied for a search warrant. The warrant was granted 3 days later. Flores and 2 other deputies searched Karen's house. They were looking for evidence connected to the tractor sale, forged documents, cash, correspondence. They found several things. In a home office, they found a printer with a color scanner. They found paper that matched the weight and texture of the bill of sale. They found a folder of Howard's signature samples, old documents from the marriage, a signed lease agreement, a signed insurance form, a letter Howard had written to a supplier. Someone had been practicing. The folder held 7 sheets of paper with repeated attempts at Howard's signature, variations of the letters H and D, getting progressively more accurate. Flores felt the case click. Karen had taken Howard's signatures from documents they shared during the marriage, practiced replicating the signature, and then produced a fraudulent bill of sale. She had taken the tractor from the farm, probably using the keys she still had access to during the separation period, driven it to Dale Whitmore's farm, sold it for $22,000 cash, and disappeared. Then Howard had reported it stolen and collected $61,000 from the insurance company. And that insurance payout had been treated as a marital asset during the divorce, with Karen receiving half, $30,500. She had received more than $30,000 from the divorce settlement based on a theft she had committed, on top of the $22,000 she had pocketed from Dale. Karen had netted over $52,000 from a tractor worth $62,000. And she had let Howard take the blame, collect the insurance, and live with the stress of a theft that never happened. But that was only half the picture. Flores went back and looked at Howard's insurance claim more carefully, the $61,000 payout. The investigation at the time had been standard. The deputies had looked around, found no evidence, and closed it. The insurance company had paid, but now Flores was looking at it differently. Had Howard known Karen had taken the tractor when he filed the theft report? If Howard had known Karen took the tractor and had still filed a theft claim and collected $61,000, that was insurance fraud. Howard would be as guilty as Karen. Flores went back to Howard with this question. He sat across from Howard in the same interview room and asked it directly. Did you know your wife had taken the tractor when you reported it stolen? Howard said no, absolutely not. He said he had believed it was stolen by persons unknown. He had no idea Karen had taken it until Flores called him in September 2024. Flores studied Howard. He had been doing this job for 18 years. He thought Howard was telling the truth, but thinking and proving were different things. Flores needed to establish whether Howard had any knowledge of Karen's involvement. He looked at the timeline. Karen and Howard had separated in February 2019. Their communications during that period had been filtered through lawyers. Howard had reported the tractor stolen on March 22nd. Karen had sold it to Dale on April 8th. If Karen had taken the tractor before Howard reported it stolen, and Howard had discovered it missing genuinely, then his theft report was legitimate. If Karen had told Howard what she planned, or if Howard had seen evidence of it and reported it stolen anyway to defraud the insurance company, that was a different story. Flores pulled the phone records. Howard and Karen's communications between February and April 2019. The records showed minimal direct contact, a few text messages, mostly about logistics, lawyers' names, appointment times, nothing that suggested coordination about the tractor. Flores also pulled the keycard records from the farm's main gate. Howard had installed an electronic keycard system on the gate in 2017. Every time the gate opened, it logged the card used and the timestamp. The records showed Howard's card used regularly. And on the evening of March 19, 2019, the gate had opened at 11:47 p.m. and closed at 12:23 a.m. A card had been used. But it wasn't Howard's card. It was a second card registered to the farm account, a card that had been issued to Karen Decker when she was still listed as a farm partner. Karen had kept her gate card after the separation. She had driven in at midnight on March 19th, hitched a trailer to the Massey Ferguson, and driven it out. Howard had discovered it missing 3 days later when he went to use it. He hadn't known. The gate records confirmed his story. Flores charged Karen Decker with felony theft, forgery of a financial document, and fraud. The charges were filed in October 2024. Karen hired a private defense attorney. The attorney argued that Karen had been an equal partner in the farm during the marriage and had a property interest in the equipment. Karen had taken what she believed was rightfully hers. The forgery charge was more difficult to defend, but the attorney argued that Karen had signed the bill of sale in the interest of facilitating a legitimate transaction. The prosecution said that was nonsense. Karen had taken a tractor that was not solely hers to take, forged her husband's signature on a fraudulent bill of sale and sold it to an innocent third party for personal gain. The prosecution said Karen had then allowed Howard to file a theft report and collect insurance on a theft she had committed, profiting again from the divorce settlement when the payout was divided. The prosecution argued this was a calculated, multi-layered fraud. Karen had thought it through. She had prepared the signature samples. She had chosen a buyer far enough away that the connection wouldn't be obvious. She had taken cash, not a traceable payment. She had done everything she could to make it disappear, and it had worked for 5 years, until a deputy ran a serial number on a routine property inspection. Dale Whitmore was not charged. Flores had been satisfied that Dale was a good-faith purchaser. Dale had paid a fair price, received documentation, and had no reason to suspect fraud. Dale had been using the tractor for 5 years without incident. He had maintained it well. When the tractor was formally identified as stolen property, it had to be seized as evidence. Dale lost the tractor he had used for 5 years. He was told he would be compensated from any judgment against Karen, but civil recovery was uncertain and slow. Dale hired his own lawyer to pursue the claim. Howard's insurance company also filed a civil suit against Karen to recover the $61,000 they had paid on the fraudulent theft claim. Howard filed a separate civil suit for the $30,500 Karen had received from the divorce settlement based on the fraudulent payout. Karen was facing criminal prosecution and 2 civil suits totaling over $90,000. Howard sat in his kitchen in November 2024 and tried to understand the full picture. Karen had taken the tractor in March 2019. She had sold it for $22,000 cash. She had let him file a theft report. She had watched the insurance company pay $61,000. She had accepted $30,500 of that money as part of the divorce settlement. She had lived 12 miles from the tractor for 5 years, knowing where it was, knowing what she had done, and said nothing. Howard had spent 5 years believing someone had stolen his tractor. He had gone through the insurance claim, the investigation, the replacement purchase. He had divided the insurance money with the woman who had stolen it, thinking he was settling a shared loss. And all along, Karen had known. She had sat across from him in a lawyer's office during the divorce, watched the $61,000 get divided, taken her $30,500, and said nothing. Howard didn't feel anger. He had expected anger. But what he felt was something closer to exhaustion, the kind of tired that comes from realizing you didn't know a person you had been married to for 22 years. The criminal trial was scheduled for March 2025. Karen pleaded not guilty. Her attorney requested a change of venue, arguing she couldn't get a fair trial in Champaign County where Howard was well known. The request was denied. The prosecution began assembling its case. Flores was the lead witness. The gate card records, the signature samples, Dale Whitmore's testimony, the phone records showing no coordination between Howard and Karen, the bank records showing Dale's cash withdrawal, the bill of sale compared to the authenticated forgery analysis from the state lab. The case was strong. The only question was whether Karen's attorney could successfully argue that Karen had a legitimate ownership claim to the tractor based on her marital interest in the farm. In January 2025, Karen changed her plea to guilty. Her attorney had told her the forgery charge was the most damaging. The signature analysis was definitive. She had forged Howard's name. There was no viable defense. Karen pleaded guilty to felony theft and forgery. The fraud charges were reduced as part of the plea. She was sentenced in February, 18 months probation, a $20,000 fine. Full restitution to Dale Whitmore for the tractor's current value, assessed at $48,000. Full restitution to the insurance company for the $61,000 payout. The civil suits were settled separately. Karen sold the house she had received in the divorce to fund the restitution. She moved to an apartment in Decatur. She was 54 years old. She had a criminal record, and she had lost everything she had fought for in the divorce, trying to take something that had cost her far more than it was worth. Howard got the Massey Ferguson back in March 2025 after the criminal proceedings concluded and it was released from evidence. He drove to Dale Whitmore's former location, where the tractor had been held pending the trial. He hadn't seen the machine in 6 years. It was in good condition. Dale had taken care of it. The hours showed 7,800. Howard stood in the yard and looked at the tractor. He remembered buying it new in 2016. He remembered the day he discovered it missing in March 2019. He remembered the sick feeling of the theft and the insurance claim and the replacement. And now here it was, his original machine, still running. He drove it back to his farm on a trailer and parked it in the machine shed. He decided to keep it, not the Case IH which he sold. He would go back to the Massey Ferguson, back to the tractor he had bought in 2016, the one that had been 12 miles away the entire time, the one that had been stolen and sold and used and seized and returned over 6 years. Howard climbed into the cab and started the engine. The engine caught immediately. The gauges came up. Everything normal. He sat there for a few minutes, engine idling, hands on the wheel, thinking about the 5 years he had spent without this machine, the 5 years he had used the Case, the 5 years Karen had known exactly where the tractor was and said nothing. And he thought about Dale Whitmore, who had bought the tractor in good faith, used it well for 5 years, and then lost it to an evident seizure without ever having done anything wrong. Howard had called Dale in November to apologize. Dale had said Howard had nothing to apologize for. Howard had said he knew, but he was sorry anyway. Dale had said he was using the restitution money to buy a replacement. He said he hoped the new one gave him less trouble. Howard had agreed. Howard put the Massey Ferguson 5711 back to work in the spring of 2025. He used it for planting. It pulled as well as it had the day he bought it. 7 years old now, 8,000 hours, but solid. He had kept up with the maintenance records from Dale's time. He knew exactly what had been done and when. The tractor was in better shape than most machines half its age. Howard told people at the co-op that he had gotten his stolen tractor back. People asked how. He told them the story, the serial number, the deputy, the bill of sale, the ex-wife. People shook their heads. They said it was unbelievable. Howard said it was real, all of it. The Massey Ferguson was 12 miles away the whole time, working someone else's fields, wearing someone else's hours, carrying a secret that took 5 years and a routine property inspection to surface. The machine didn't know any of that. It just ran. It just did the work. It didn't care who owned it or what had happened around it. It was a tractor, 110 horsepower, 4-cylinder diesel, serial number MF5711-26-31847, reported stolen March 22, 2019, found September 2024. Still running, still working, still exactly what it had always been. The people around it had lied and stolen and forged and collected and settled and pleaded and lost, but the tractor had just kept running. And when Howard finally brought it home, 5 years and 800 miles of other people's fields later, it started on the first turn of the key. Like it had been waiting. Like it knew it was going back where it belonged.